This meeting is being recorded.
Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to our class on the Nectar of Devotion. This is a book written by Srila Rup Goswami, and a summary study has been presented by our founder Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. So today we will be studying the preface of this book, and this is our first class on the subject matter. So we will start with the Mangalasharan prayers. Let me do the honor today. For next time, Rakesh Prabhu will assign the services. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तु ते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Okay, so moving to the next item, I will request Jivan Radha Govind Prabhu to kindly summarize the previous class which we presented on Nectar of Instruction, verse number 11. So,
Yeah.
Prabhuji, if you can briefly
Yeah.
summarize. Yeah, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Hare Krishna. I thank Keshava Gopal Prabhu for giving me this opportunity for this presentation. And I thank all the other members of the thing to give a passionate hearing. See, the Rupa Goswami, in his topic on reside in Vraja, in verse number 10 says that Srimati Radharani and Radha
Pra-
sorry,
Prabhuji,
some
we lost
telephone.
we lost your voice. We lost your voice for a while.
Because
Yeah.
of some this call came. Sanju, idu pannu.
Okay, okay. Please
Okay.
continue.
So in verse number 10 says, Rupa says that Srimati Radharani and Radha Kunda are most dear to Krishna. And in verse 11, he says, by bathing in Radha Kunda and taking shelter of Radharani, one's love towards Lord Krishna is fully aroused. Then
Prabhuji,
the
just
brief.
for a while, just a minute. If you can switch on your video so devotees can also watch you on the screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. A brief meaning of the verse, of all the gopis, Sri Radharani is the most treasured to Lord. Similarly, Radha Kunda also is very dear, as Munis described. Third point is Radha Kunda is attained very rare, even by exalted devotees. What to speak of ordinary devotees? And number 4, love towards Lord is fully aroused, even if one simply base once, even once into the holy waters of Radha Kunda. 5 topics were covered in our class. That is, these are all how to perceive exalted nature of Radha Kunda. Second point is wrong understanding of exalted pastime. Third point is can bathing only once really gives love for God, Lord Krishna. Number 4th point is why Madhurya Bhakti is most exalted. And the 5th point is the conclusion. How to first
Prabhuji,
take the first point. Yeah.
just if you can shift your camera a little bit so that your face is fully visible. Right now it is cutting a little bit. Yeah,
Is it okay?
that is better now. Yeah, that is much better. Thank you. No. Little bit more, Prabhuji.
No?
Yeah, more, little bit more. Same direction, little bit more. Yeah. No, once again it has come back to the same position. Yeah,
Now it is better, Prabhu.
it is better, Prabhu. But once you start reading, then your face goes in the other direction and you are not
Okay,
visible.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay,
So you,
okay.
yeah,
Right.
that
How
is better now.
to
Yeah.
how to perceive the exalted nature of Radha Kunda? The following are the points. Radharani is the most exalted devotee of Lord, and Radha Kunda is also associated with her. That is why Radha Kunda is considered to be the most exalted place and dear to Lord, like Radharani is. Scriptures say that glorify the Supreme Lord and also simultaneously glorify the objects or places associated with Him. We cannot at once, we cannot immediately arouse love for these places associated with Him, either within our heart, that is Udipan, just like that. We can assure this only through, we can arouse this only through service, that is bhakti or devotional service to Lord, that is ahaitiki apratihata, that is unmotivated, uninterrupted love towards devotional service to the Lord. In order to perceive the exalted nature of these places as described in the scriptures, 1-2 of this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, 1-2.234, sensory purification is necessary and is possible only through service which starts from the tongue, namely chanting. Actually, the devotional service starts with chanting. And the next point, which is important here, is simply by visiting Radha Kunda, we cannot become advanced in Krishna consciousness. Control of senses is a prerequisite. One should become a Goswami, not Godasa. This is stressed by Rupa Goswami from chapter 1 till the end. Actually, it starts from even from the introduction, preface, and all that till the end of Upadeshamrita. Only after following the instructions in the advanced stage of this devote service, we will become eligible to go to the Lord Vrindavan, go to Golok Vrindavana, become associated with the pastimes of the Radha Krishna. Next, we have talked about when we are having more and more sinful activities, then more and more sense gratification, we get into a sinful activity. A small brief was also given on that. Sinful activity is bad. Sinful activities at holy place is worse. And if we do sinful activity in the garb of a spiritual person, considering oneself as advanced in the spirituality, in the holy place, that too in the holy place is worst. Next topic was the wrong understanding of exalted pastimes. Actually, the following are the points. Contemplate exalted pastimes in advanced stage of devotion. Some of the neophytes not only contemplate but enact also. This is a very, very wrong attitude and should be avoided. Exalted pastimes and spirituality. The actual next topic was exalted pastimes, and there are two approaches to spirituality. One is the Vedantic and the next one is the Bhakti. Vedantic is followed by the Jnanis and Bhakti by devotees. In the Vedantic approach, they try to contemplate, try to meditate, and they also analyze the scriptures. They reject the matter. They promote only spiritual things. In the approach of Bhakti or Bhaktas, devotees approach, they do not consider material world to be rejected. Rather, they consider the material world as the property of the Lord, utilize the property for service of the Lord, for the service of the Lord. In the process, they get purified, they get elevated, and so on. But there is one danger. Not all the matter can lead for deliverance to Lord. So actually the regulative principles, we have got 4 regulative principles. That is intoxication, all these things are there. So alcohol, eating, meat, gambling, and illicit, all these things that should not be used. in this connection. This is the exception, and this is what they call as a danger. Next point is spirituality. Next point is the spirituality and tantra tradition. We call it as also as a left-hand tradition or warm tradition. There are some spiritual traditions not approved by Vaishnava acharyas. They use sex as the means of spiritual realization. They say creation is a dance of matter and spirit, that is Prakriti and Purusha, and that is Lord Shiva and Parvati, and they consider union of Lord Shiva and Parvati as the spiritual relation. This is not the correct thing. Such thoughts are have entered into Vaishnavism also. That is called the deviant sects. They consider Rasa Lila is one of the pastimes. When we enact, is a sign of advancement of spirituality. Srila Prabhupada has condemned in his teaching this kind of a wrong understanding of exalted pastimes, and he has termed them as not Rasa Lila but Raskal Lila. An incident from ISKCON's history when devotees enacted a drama of exalted pastimes, Radha Krishna, Prabhupada disapproved the same. He discouraged in imitating the exalted pastime and said that this will take in wrong direction. Next point is, can bathing once really in Radha Kunda give love for Krishna, or whether we can advance like that. Scriptural texts are potent, but multiple conditions or principles apply. Example, when somebody kills somebody else, or somebody kills some person, then it is immediately we call for death punishment. It need not be like that. He may be innocent by mistake, who would have killed somebody like that. Similarly, Rupa Goswami mentioned bathing, especially when he talks to bathing in text 11, it is coming as a climax of the, there are 11 verses, out of which up to 10th verse, a lot of things are given on sense gratification, purification, so many things are mentioned. Only when, and 11th verse only is the verse, when everybody gets purified, when some instructions are followed as called for in the verses 1 to 10, definitely purification. Then bathing once in rail, only once in Radha Kunda also definitely will give love for Krishna. Next point is why Madhurya Bhakti is so exalted. We should understand the following points. Relationship between Radha and Krishna is not a male and female relationship. It is a devotee-lord relationship. Material world, actually we understand from Bhagavad Gita that material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. The pure love of Godhead which is existing in the spiritual world, it is being reflected as a lust in the material world. Lord Krishna is there in the spiritual world. Male and female relationship is existing in the spiritual world in the purest form. How this is achieved and Lord Krishna desires to exhibit. The purest loving relationship and then expands into Srimati. Actually, the Lord, in the purest relationship, 1 minute. The purest loving relationship and then expands into Srimati Radharani. That is, the Lord divides into two, which means the male form is Lord Krishna and the female form is the Radha. So Radharani is there, that is, he is Lord Krishna himself in the female form, acting the role of a devotee, and Lord Krishna is acting in the form of in the platform of Bhagavan. That is in spiritual world. This is the arrangement in spiritual world to exhibit the topmost love between the Lord and the devotee. This is also confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adilila 3.4.56. Loving relation between Lord and Radharani is not static but dynamic. Loving relationship between the Lord Krishna becomes more and more perfect when the gopis join, and by the potency of Yogamaya, Lord Krishna also forget that he is God, and gopis also forget that Krishna is God. Even in various relationships, the conjugal relationship between Radha and Krishna is the topmost. Even in conjugal relationship, there are two types. One is the Swakiya Rasa and the other is the Parakiya Rasa. In Swakiya Rasa, there is a boundary of relationship. Example between Ramachandra and Sita Devi and Krishna and Lord Krishna and Rukmani. In the Parakiya Rasa, which is between Lord and the Gopis and the Radhika Rani, in Parakiya Ras, it is not identified that though the Gopis and Radha Rani belong to someone else, actually there is no scriptural evidence that Radha Rani is married to Lord Krishna. So there is no that type of thing. So that's why I mentioned it is not identified though the Gopis and Radha Rani belong to someone else, still they belong to Lord Krishna. They are paramours. There is no rightful claim like a Swakiya Rasa. This relationship is there to heighten, that is once again to elevate the mood of love between the two parties. Also, obstacles in the form of so-called illicit relationship makes it more exalted. Gopis and Radhika Rani go to the extent of even sacrificing their own good things, that is to the extent of the chastity for the sake of God. And this makes the relationship more exalted. And in the final conclusion, Rupa Goswami is taking us to the topmost in devotional service, where we are serving Radha and Krishna with completely purified spirit in verses 1 to 10. And verse 11 is the climax of the thing. Verse 1 to 10 are a number of instructions are there. And when we do all these, follow all these instructions, and then if we act as per the called for in the verse 11, then definitely we can advance in our Krishna consciousness. Definitely we can reach Golok Vrindavan. I am very thankful to Keshav Gopal Prabhu for giving me this opportunity. I have taken little more time than as usual, and I thank once again our Bhakti Vriksha, our leader, Keshav Gopal Prabhu, and also all the listeners, all our devotee friends who have been passionate enough to hear this. Thank you once again, all. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Thanks a lot. So I enjoyed listening to your rendition of the class of the Nectar of Instruction text 11. Very nicely summarized. Yes, took a little time, but that's fine. Okay, so let us move to the subject matter of today's class. Yeah, I'll once again share the screen. Okay. So now we are beginning a new book. We have finished 3 books. One is Bhagavad Gita. Then we did Sri Ishopanishad. And then we just now, with the summary of Nectar of Instruction text 11, we kind of concluded the Updeshamrit or Nectar of Instruction classes also. Although one quiz is due, which is from text number 6 to text number 11. We have to uh, design a quiz and then share it with the devotees so that they can practice on that quiz and deepen their understanding of the subject matter from text 6 to text 11 of Updeshamrit. We will do it surely in coming days. But the topic for today's class is the new book Nectar of Devotion. And I'm not sure if devotees present in the class already have this book. If they don't have this book, they can purchase the book available on internet. They can very easily order it. Should not be a very costly book. But in case you don't want to purchase it right from the beginning, you want to try it out, you can also read the book on the internet. It is available on Veda Base without any cost. So you can read the book from internet as well. So this class, which we are going to start from today, we will explain or we will study actually this book called The Nectar of Devotion. So today we will be talking about the preface of this book, and the author of this book, The Nectar of Devotion, uh, is Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada actually has presented this book as a summary study for the original work that was done by Srila Rup Goswami. So as you can see the first bullet point, this book is a summary study of the original work that has been written by Srila Rup Goswami, and that book is actually a masterpiece. It's a very, very popular book. And the title of the book that Srila Rup Goswami wrote was Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. So uh, now when I say summary study, what do we mean by summary study? Hmm? So Srila Prabhupada has written many, many books uh, when he started ISKCON, and in order to give ISKCON a firm basis, a basis based on Shastra, Srila Prabhupada had written many books. And as I mentioned in the beginning, we have already studied three of his books: Bhagavad Gita, uh, Nectar of Instruction, and Shri Ishopanishad. So in all of these, most of his books, Srila Prabhupada style of writing these books have been something like this. And you have already a little bit aware of the style that Srila Prabhupada has used to write his typical books. So first of all, Srila Prabhupada would present the Sanskrit verse. Then after presenting the Sanskrit verse, he will present a transliteration of that verse in the English Roman script. So he will present the transliteration. Then after presenting the transliteration, there will be a word by word translation. So each word of the Sanskrit verse, he will identify that word, and then he will explain that word uh, in a simple translation. Then there will be a sentence translation. So whatever is there in the Sanskrit verse, that will be presented as a sentence translation in simple English, and then followed by his purports. So this is a typical style that Srila Prabhupada has followed in most of his books. But two books that he has written, one book is The Nectar of Devotion, that you see the cover page of that book right here. And another book is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these two books that Srila Prabhupada has written, he has written as a summary study. As a summary study. So what is summary study? Summary study is something which Srila Prabhupada has not used the same typical style that he has used in his other books. So in summary study, he has not mentioned the Sanskrit verse. He has not mentioned the Roman transliteration. Neither he has mentioned word by word translation. Neither he has mentioned any sentence translation. So he has simply uh, wrote this book as a text, as a complete text, and uh, which is more or less like following the flow of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, the original work that Srila Rup Goswami has written. But it is a plain text. But in these text, while he's explaining the verses in a simple English, he has also kind of given his own commentary also in between these texts. So why he has done so? He did so mainly because Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu actually is a very technical book. It is not a something like a story, but it is something a very technical book. And if Prabhupada would have written this book in his typical format, that would have become quite a demanding task to explain all the technicalities and other stuff. So rather than going that typical format of his book, he decided to choose to write this book in a more of a summary study, where he's covering all the important aspects that has been explained in the book by the original author, which is Srila Rup Goswami, and interjecting at various places with his own explanation, elaborations, and so on, so that the book doesn't become or doesn't appear very technical, very heavy. Rather, it appear a little more fluent, a little more easier to follow, and most importantly, the important aspects that Prabhupada wanted to communicate to the devotee community or to the world at large, that are communicated in a simple manner. That is why he decided to write this in a summary study format. But uh, let me also explain why he chose to write the Krishna book, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as a summary study. Now, people may not know that the Krishna book that Srila Prabhupada has written as a summary study is actually uh, the same subject matter that is covered in the canto number 10 of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, Srimad Bhagavatam is a very long book. It has a lot of verses, very elaborate book. And in that long book, there are actually 12 cantos. And these 12 cantos are available in the market. When you go to the ISKCON center, it is available in ISKCON center in 18 volumes. So it's quite an elaborate book. And in these 18 volumes, you will notice that only 4 volumes are there for canto 10 only. And in these 4 volumes in canto 10, primarily what has been described is the pastimes of Lord Krishna, right from starting from his birth and all the activities that are there associated with Lord Krishna, that has been explained in the 10th canto. It is quite an elaborate work. Almost 90 chapters are there covered in the 10th canto. And the whole of Bhagavatam actually covers something like 330 chapters, or 330 plus chapters are there in Srimad Bhagavatam. So out of those 330, 90 chapters are there explaining only the pastimes of Lord Krishna. So Prabhupada was very cautious, and he was in a very advanced stage, and he thought that he might leave or he might depart from this world anytime, because he was quite old when he started this ISKCON movement and writing all these books. He was quite in an advanced stage, something maybe between 65 and 70 was his age. So since he was in very advanced stage and he was writing these books, he thought that if he start writing Srimad Bhagavatam, he might not be able to complete it. And that is why he chose to write Krishna book, basing it on canto number 10 of Srimad Bhagavatam, so that in case he departs early, then at least he would make this contribution, he would make this service, that people would understand who is Lord Krishna based upon the explanation that is given in Srimad Bhagavatam. Because there is a lot of misunderstanding about Lord Krishna. Some people understand Lord Krishna as a person who would flirt with girls, who would play around with ladies, and so on. And that is not the correct understanding. Like short while ago, Jivan Radha Govind Prabhu very nicely elaborated that these pastimes between Lord Krishna and the gopis are not to be understood as we understand the dealings between man and woman in this world. They have to be understood in a different way. So all in order to explain to the world who is Lord Krishna, Srila Prabhupada wrote this book, Krishna book, basing it on Canto 10 of Srimad Bhagavatam as a summary study. So the whole crux of the matter is the book that we are going to study, Nectar of Devotion, has been written in a different way, like what I'm displaying you on my screen. Has to be studied slightly in a different way, because it is written as a summary study. So like we have been studying the other books, Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Instruction, it is a little bit written in a different format. So while I make that remark, we will study it in a different way. We will take help of the original book that Srila Rup Goswami has written as Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. And Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu has been written by Srila Rup Goswami in Sanskrit. The commentary on Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu is also available, and that commentary has been written by another Goswami, who is known as Srila Jeev Goswami. And that commentary is also is written in Sanskrit. But because of the efforts of one of the sannyasis in our movement, his name is Bhanu Maharaj, Bhanu Swami. So Bhanu Swami has actually provided the English translation of the commentaries that has been written by Srila Jeev Goswami on the original work of Srila Rup Goswami. So I also have the English translation of that commentary with me here, and we will be taking help of this commentary also at various places when we will discuss this book in the classes on Nectar of Devotion. So with that, let me move to the next slide. Now, few words about the uh, title of this book. So the title of this book that we are going to study, which is written by Srila Prabhupada, the title of this book is The Nectar of Devotion. So let us see from where this title is coming. So as I mentioned, the original book, the title of original book as written by Srila Rup Goswami is Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Now, if you break this Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu into various components, then there are four words that are involved in this. One is Bhakti, then Rasa, then Amrita, and then Sindhu. So among these four words, we have already discussed a lot about Bhakti. So Bhakti is actually devotional service. Uh, Rasa, the word Rasa uh, cannot be completely translated into English. Uh, a close translation of the word Rasa actually would mean something like emotion or taste. For example, whatever activity we do or whatever engagement we involve ourselves in this material world, there is some taste in all of these activities. So rasa is actually something to do with that taste or that emotion that we experience when we are engaged in that activity. So that is something called rasa. So exact translation of the word rasa is not possible into English. Amrita, Amrita, the word Amrita can mean two things. Something which is very, very tasty, which is very, very sweet, which is very, very relishable. And another translation of the word Amrita could be, or another meaning for the word Amrita could be eternal. Eternal means which is giving a very long life, which makes you something like kind of immortal. So that is Amrita. And Sindhu is a translation or a Sanskrit word for English translation of ocean. Now, when we combine all these four words and translate it into English, it would mean nectarian ocean of rasa of bhakti. So, nectarian ocean of emotion of bhakti or taste of bhakti, something like that. So, Srila Prabhupada has kind of simplified this title. Nectarian Ocean of Rasa of Bhakti sounds a little bit too long, not very catchy. So Srila Prabhupada has simplified the title and has simply put into as the nectar of devotion. So it is simple, it is catchy, it is attractive. That is how Srila Prabhupada has translated the original title into the nectar of devotion. Now, this is a very large book. It has got many, many verses. Uh, and in the work that Srila Prabhupada has done in this book called Nectar of Devotion, it has got 51 chapters. If you open the table of contents, you will find there are total 51 chapters. But as part of the study in this program, we will not study all the 51 chapters. Rather, we will study only first 19 chapters as Prabhupada considered them to be the most important chapters. And when Jeev Goswami has written commentary, actually Jeev Goswami has chosen to write commentary, and the most of the elaboration that we can see is available only for the first 19 chapters. For the other chapters, you will find that there is not much elaboration there, but if devotees may want to study those other chapters also, I mean, they can very well read those from the work that Srila Prabhupada has done. So you can see in the 19 chapters, total number of pages are 150 pages, and the total book actually has something like 400 pages. So uh, You can see almost, I would say 30-40% of the content of the book is covered in the first 19 chapters. So this book is considered as one of the most important book in Gaudiya Vaishnav tradition. And why this is considered most important book in Gaudiya Vaishnav tradition? Because it not only tells us about bhakti, but it tells us specifically in detail about Madhurya Bhakti. Madhurya Bhakti, uh, as we have briefly also kind of discussed in our previous classes, specifically in the final verses of Nectar of Instruction, Updeshamrit, we explained to you that there are 5 major rasas. One is Shant Ras, then another one is Dasya Ras, then Sakhya Ras, then Vatsalya Ras, and ultimately Madhurya Ras. As I mentioned to you, rasa means emotion or taste. Whatever activity we do in this world or in our life gives us some kind of a taste, some kind of an emotion. And when we like that emotion, when we are attached to that emotion, we like to do that activity again and again to actually relish that taste, relish that emotion again and again. So bhakti also can be performed in various emotions. So the Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, and up to Madhurya, these are various emotions expressed. So although many Vaishnav traditions that are there, or multiple Vaishnav traditions that we will see, uh, explains about Madhurya Ras, but in Gaudiya Vaishnav tradition, Gaudiya Vaishnav tradition is something where we belong to, the ISKCON devotees belong to. So specifically in Gaudiya Vaishnav tradition, because of these wonderful work by Srila Rup Goswami, the understanding of Madhurya Ras has been mentioned or has been elaborated in much more detail. Hmm. So the meaning of word Gaudiya has 2 meanings. So Gaudiya comes from the word Gauda, and the Gauda is also a region. Region means the Bengal region in India. If you see the map of India, so the region in the where the Bengal is there, the West Bengal province of West Bengal is there in the present map of India. That region is known as Gaud. So Gaud Desh. So because this Vaishnavism which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started uh, developed in that Gaud region, that is why we are known as Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So that is one meaning of the word Gaudiya. But the another meaning of word Gaudiya also is related with the word good. Good in English is known as jaggery. Yeah. So from the word good comes the word Gaud. And the word good is because it's a sweetener. It enhances the sweetness of anything. If you mix some good in some beverage or some preparation, food preparation, it becomes sweet. So it is something like it is prepared with sugar cane. In Bengal region, actually it is prepared with the dates that is there, or khajur we call it in the Bengal region. So the good that is prepared in Bengal region is specifically very sweet. It almost tastes like a chocolate. So it is very sweet. So Gaudiya is also something related to explaining that aspect of bhakti which is very sweet, which is very enchanting, very sweet, which is very madhurya. So because this book actually explains much more detail and fine details of Madhurya Ras, Madhurya Bhakti. This is becoming a very important book, not only in Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, but also in general Vaishnavas, among Vaishnavas. So that is little bit about the uh, opening remarks about the book that we are going to study, titled as The Nectar of Devotion by Srila Prabhupada. Now, we are going to study in today's class about the preface part of this book. So when I open this book and go to the preface, I see there are roughly 6 pages worth of content in the preface, roughly 6 pages full and half page So something like 6.5 pages of worth of text in the preface. So what is a preface? There are various ways of opening a book or starting a book, to begin a book. So some people start the book by foreword. Some people uh, start the book by writing a prologue, and sometimes we see a preface. So what is the difference between foreword, prologue, and preface? Briefly, foreword is something which is written by a famous person in general, which is known and very popular and known to the people in general. Now, foreword is something very similar to uh, when we uh, present somebody. For example, if there is a class going to happen, there is a large audience that has gathered in the class, and a speaker has come, and this speaker is coming from outside the congregation of the audience that has assembled. So now the audience does not know the speaker certainly doesn't know the audience, but there is somebody in the audience who is very, very well known to the audience and also well known to the speaker. Now some such person comes forward and then explain or give a little brief introduction about the speaker who is about to present or address to the audience in general. And so this person introduces the speaker of the class. So similarly, forward is there. So forward is written by somebody who is not the author of the book, but who is a very famous person, and this famous person is now introducing uh, the author of the book, the subject matter of the book, by writing this piece called forward. So that is the that is one style that is used to uh, start the book. Now, Srila Prabhupada book that I was mentioning to you short while ago, Krishna book, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the foreword for that book was written by John Harrison. So John Harrison was a very famous pop singer in those times. He became very, very popular and did a lot of good services for Prabhupada, donated his vast estate of Bhaktivedanta Manor, which is popularly known as Bhaktivedanta Manor in the present area of London in UK. He donated his vast estate to Prabhupada. He was quite inspired by Prabhupada. He also wrote many songs about Lord Krishna and sang that song, became very, very popular. So that's why he wrote that foreword for that book. Prologue is something which is generally written for a novel, and it is something which is a captivating scene from the book, which is now presented as prologue just to uh, invoke a lot of attention and curiosity among the reader and so on. So that is something which is known as prologue. And preface is something which is written by the author himself, and it generally explains what is the book about and why the book has been written. So this is mainly the subject matter of preface. So Prabhupada's commentary on Bhagavad Gita that we have already studied in our classes also has this called a section called preface. So in that section, Srila Prabhupada mentions that what inspired him to write Srimad Bhagavad Gita, what were those events that transpired, and the book was written. He wrote the book in a large format in the beginning, then that script was stolen, then he again wrote it, and then it was published. When it was published, the script was shortened. Like that, he has given in his preface some understanding of why the book was written and so on. And then after preface, Srila Prabhupada writes introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. So in introduction, he introduces Bhagavad Gita, where he mentions what are the 5 subject matter he has written: Jeev, Ishvara, Prakriti, Kal, Karma. So these are the 5 main subject matters of Bhagavad Gita, and he explained each of these subject matter in the introduction of Bhagavad Gita. So like that, a book is presented in a form, and preface is one important section of the form where we get a glimpse of what exactly is the subject matter of the book, why it was written, what was the importance, what was the relevance of writing that book, and so on. So today we will study about the preface of this book, which we are going to study in our coming classes. Something like maybe 19-20 classes we will be devoting on studying this book called The Nectar of Devotion. Now, in the preface, uh, as I mentioned, it's a 6.5 worth of text, pages worth of text, and there are total 13 paragraphs. Huh? And in each of these paragraphs, if we want to classify, so from paragraph 1 to 5, Srila Prabhupada has introduced the author of the book, who is Rup Goswami. Who is Rup Goswami? We need to know what he has done, what was his contribution, and a little bit historical in these first 5 paragraphs. Then the next 2 paragraphs, Srila Prabhupada now start to introduce about the subject matter of this book. And as I mentioned, the original title of the book was Bhakti Ras Amrit Sindhu. Huh? So Bhakti Ras. So we are talking about Bhakti Ras. Now, what is the difference between Bhakti Ras and the ordinary Ras? Ordinary Ras, or we can say mundane Ras, that we experience in our day-to-day dealings in our life. So what is the difference? That has been captured in paragraph 6 and 7. Then the next 5 paragraphs, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. The subject matter of Nectar of Devotion has been explained in a little more further detail, so that we will try to understand. And then ultimately in paragraph 13, he has given his gratitude to some of his disciples and ISKCON Press, like that. So we will not kind of elaborate on paragraph 13, but we will elaborately discuss about uh, the first 3 sections of preface, where he has introduced the author. He has explained the difference between Bhakti Rasa and ordinary Rasa, and then further elaborated on the subject matter of this book. So we start with the first theme of the preface, where Srila Prabhupada is now introducing Srila Rupa Goswami. So Srila Rupa Goswami, as we have already have some idea, some awareness, some familiarity when we studied this book called Nectar of Instruction, Updeshamrit, because Srila Rupa Goswami is the author of Updeshamrit as well. But let us now have a little more detailed knowledge or awareness of who was Srila Rupa Goswami. So Srila Rupa Goswami was one of the ministers in the government of Bengal in those days. And this government of Bengal was led by a Mohammedan whose name was Nawab Hussain Shah. He was a Pathan, and he was the king there. He was the government was ruled by this Mohammedan king, Nawab Hussain Shah. And Rup Goswami, along with his another elder brother, Sanatan Goswami, these were very, very learned people of their region. And they were so learned that they became very, very famous. And they become so famous that Nawab Hussain Shah actually wanted to employ both of them in the government. Nawab Hussain Shah thought that if he would employ both of them, the people will not revolt, because both of them actually come from the same people that he's about to rule, or that he wants to rule. So since these people are coming from the uh, normal population, then if they are going to rule or they are going to assist me in my government, people will not revolt, people will kindly accept what is going on in the government. But both Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami did not want to work with Nawab Hussain Shah. And uh, Nawab Hussain Shah, because he really wanted them to work for him, he threatened them that if you don't work with me, then I will persecute the Vaishnava community, your family members, your friends, the Vaishnava community in general. So in order to save the Vaishnava community from the persecution of this Nawab, they actually reluctantly agreed to become the minister in the government of Nawab Hussain Shah. And in those days, the Hindu society was very, very rigid. And if somebody would want to work for a Mohammedan king, then immediately these people would be considered outcast, or they will be ostracized, because the Hindi community was very, very rigid. So if you are working for a Muslim, then you would be considered as an outcast. And both Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami took birth in a Brahman Saraswat family. So Saraswat Brahmans, they were born Saraswat Brahmans. So if you are born in a Saraswat Brahman family and working for a Mohammedan king, then immediately you are considered as an outcast. But Shriman Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Bhagwan Chaitanya Mahaprabhu still accepted both Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami as his disciple. And that is mainly because Lord Chaitanya's principle is universal. And what do we mean by universal? By universal, we mean that if we understand certain things in proper way and demonstrate our knowledge and demonstrate our understanding, our life according to those principles, then it does not matter whether we are born in a very high family or whether in a very low family. So qualification was the basis, not the birth was the basis. So what was Lord Chaitanya's universal principle? Lord Chaitanya's universal principle was that if anyone knows the science of Krishna and is sincerely engaged in the service of Lord Krishna, then that person actually has to be accepted at a very higher position, even a higher position to the extent that he should be considered higher than even the Brahmanas. So that was the principle of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hmm. And from that standard, he accepted both Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami as very, very exalted Vaishnavas who are even higher than Brahmanas. So Lord Chaitanya not only exhibited this principle in the case of Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, but he also exhibited this principle in the case of another Vaishnava who is known as Haridas Thakur. So we might have discussed about Haridas Thakur in our previous classes, but just to repeat that point, who is actually Haridas Thakur? So Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami were actually born in a Brahman Saraswat family, Saraswat Brahman family. But Haridas Thakur's birth was in a Muslim family. So by birth, Haridas Thakur was a Muslim, a Mohammedan. But from the perspective of understanding Krishna, from the perspective of demonstrating his understanding, demonstrating his behavior, etc., etc., he was considered as the Acharya of the holy name. Acharya of the holy name means one who has mastered, one who is considered to be the topmost teacher of how the holy name has to be chanted, in what mood the holy name has to be chanted. So practically and from all perspectives, Srila Haridas Thakur demonstrated a very, very exalted devotee, and he was considered as the Nam Acharya, which means the Acharya of the holy names by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in ISKCON, generally there the standard that we follow is that when we are given initiation by our Diksha Gurus, we are expected to chant at least 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra every day. But Haridas Thakur would chant actually 192 rounds every day. So practically that would take almost 22 hours. And then the rest of the 2 hours that were sparing, he would do his cleaning, he would take his bath, he would take his meal, he would take rest, etc., in the balance 2 hours. So I'm not kind of intimidating you. These are very exalted personalities, special personalities that come on earth in order to assist the Lord in his pastimes, in his Leela. But suffice it to say, we should take some inspiration from these personalities and uh, try to follow and uh, take inspiration and try to follow into their footsteps. We should not imitate them, but we should take inspiration and try to improve ourselves in our devotional life. So that is Lord Chaitanya's universal principle. So where did Lord Chaitanya met Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami? So Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami wrote many letters to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is no other than but Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna himself. So they wrote many letters to him that they want to meet him. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, uh, once he was going to Vrindavan along with many of his associates, and on the way he took a detour and decided to meet Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami at a place called Ramkeli in Bengal. Huh? And after meeting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Ramkeli in Bengal, both Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami decided that they will retire from the job, government job that they were having. And both Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami had collected a lot of money because Nawab Hussain Shah gave them a lot of riches, a very lot of gold coins. They had millions of dollars from today's standard. Hmm. So when they decided to retire from the government, they actually distributed all their wealth, most of their wealth, to the Brahmanas, to the Vaishnavas. Then part of this wealth they gave it to the relatives, and some part of the wealth they kept it for their own use as for emergency use. Rup Goswami got retired first. Sanatan Goswami got retired later. Although Sanatan Goswami was the elder brother of Rup Goswami, but because Rup Goswami got the sannyas order from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu before Sanatan Goswami, so Sanatan Goswami always considered Rup Goswami as his senior. That was the humility of Sanatan Goswami, that he always considered Rup Goswami as his senior. So there is an example when Jeev Goswami, which is another who is another one of the six Goswamis, came to take initiation from Sanatan Goswami. Sanatan Goswami mentioned that you better go to Rup Goswami because I consider him as my senior. So if senior is present, then the junior is not, out of etiquette, is should not be giving initiation to somebody who comes to ask for initiation. So that is Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. And they first, both of them first met. So okay, before I go to that, Rup Goswami got sannyas order first, and he also got retired from the government job before Sanatan Goswami. Sanatan Goswami got retirement from his government job with some difficulty. Nawab Hussain Shah did not want him to leave, but somehow he made and convinced, uh, uh, not convinced actually, Sanatan Goswami actually made some arrangement by using that wealth of Rup Goswami, and escaped from the prison and met Lord Chaitanya at Prayag. So both Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami uh, uh, left their government job and met Lord Chaitanya at Prayag. So at present day, this Prayag is known as Allahabad. Now this name Allahabad has once again has been changed to Prayagraj. So in Prayag, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave instruction to both Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami continuously for 10 days. All the teachings that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to teach, he taught both these brothers and continuously gave them instruction for 10 days. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is Lord Krishna himself, but he comes here to explain how the devotional service, how the pure devotional service towards Lord Krishna is to be practiced. So he taught that science to both these brothers. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself has not written any books. The only work that is published and known to us by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the 8 verses, which is known as Shikshashtakam. Hmm. That is the only work that we know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has written. But all his teachings that he has written or given those teachings through the books of Srila Rup Goswami. So later, whatever lessons Rup Goswami learned from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Later, Rup Goswami elaborated all his instructions in the form of these books. So, as I mentioned to you, he has written many books, and one we have already studied one book called Updeshamrit. The other book we are about to study, which is known as Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, and he has written many other books. Uh, so, among the four major tasks that were assigned to these Goswamis by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the four major tasks were: uncover the places of Radha Krishna pastimes in Vrindavan. So Lord Radha Krishna has done many leelas in the area of Vrajabhumi, Vrindavan, and they were covered. They were not known to people. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told the six Goswamis that one of the objective of you people are to uncover those places, bring them out for the knowledge of people, so that people can take inspiration from those places. The second task was construct temples. So they have constructed a lot of temples in the area of Vrindavan. So that is another task. Like for example, Radha Damodar Mandir in Vrindavan has been constructed by the six Goswamis. Then write books. So write books for what purpose? Now you can understand that Vedic literature is very huge, a very large body of literature. There are many books. For example, Upanishads, 108 Upanishads are there, and some of the books actually have now been lost. We don't know many of these books right now. We don't have access to those books. So Vedic literature is very large, very elaborate. It has an advantage, also has a disadvantage. Advantage is it's a large body of knowledge, so we have a lot of knowledge. But at the same time, it is so large, to understand what is the essence of Vedic literature, we generally get lost. So from books like Srimad Bhagavad Gita, we can understand what is the essence of all these Vedic knowledge, where Lord Krishna says, Vedanta Krit Ved Vid Ev Chaham. So I am the knower of the Vedanta, I am the compiler of the Vedanta, I am the knower of the Veda, and I am the goal of this Veda. So from these books we understand, but it is not very evident. It is not very obvious. If we start to read these books from all of these books, we might be kind of lost, and we might come to a different conclusion also. So one of the tasks that was assigned by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the six Goswami was that study Vedic literature, scrutinizingly study Vedic literature, and then present pure devotional service, Ananya Bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti, as the conclusion of these Vedic scriptures. So that is why these books have been written by the six Goswamis. And then after you write books, you need to live those books. You personally have to follow those books, exemplify those books by your own life, and teach to other people this Sadharma. Sadharma means pure devotional service, which is mainly meant for the benefit of the humanity. Now, the same mood has been expressed in one of the paragraphs, one of the padas of one of the ashtakam that we most of the time sing for the Goswamis. So it is known as Shad Goswami Ashtakam. Shad means six, Goswami is the six Goswamis, and Ashtakam means a prayer or a song which has got 8 paragraphs. So the second paragraph of this song is something like this. It says, Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipunau Sadharma Sansthapakou Lokanam Hitakarinau Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanayak Manyo Sharanyakarau Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Anandena Mattalikau Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyugau Shri Alakau. So like this song Shad Goswami Ashtakam is sung, and the meaning of this song conveys the same thought that I just now explained to you in the previous slide. So let us see what this paragraph means. So let us start from the bottommost line. Vande Roop Sanatana Raghu Yugao Shri Jiva Gopalakau. So these are the names of all the 6 Goswamis. Vande. Vande means I offer my respectful pranams to whom? Roop Sanatan. So these are Roop Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, and then Raghu Yugau. So the word Yugau means two, and Raghu Yugau means, so the 2 Goswamis have actually the same name. Yeah. One name is Raghunath Das Goswami, and the second name is Raghunath Bhatt Goswami. And like you see, Roop Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, and Raghunath Das Goswami. So these are the 2 Raghus, 2 Raghunaths of the 6 Goswamis. Then the 5th Goswami is Jiva, Shri Jiva. Shri Jiva means Jiva Goswami. And the last one is Gopalakau. Gopalakau means Shri Gopal Bhatt Goswami. So these are the 6 Goswami: Roop Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Jiv Goswami, and Gopal Bhatt Goswami. Now, what is the qualities of these 6 Goswamis? That is mentioned in the 3 lines. Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipunau. Nipunau means expert. Vicharanaika means contemplating, scrutinizingly studying. What? Nana Shastra. Nana Shastra means various Vedic literature. Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipunau. So they are expert in contemplating, in scrutinizingly studying the various revealed scriptures, and then establishing Sadharma. Sadharma Sanstapakau. So what is Sadharma? Sadharma is nothing else but pure devotional service, Ananya Bhakti. For what purpose? Loka Nam Hitkarinau. For the hita, for the benefit of the Loka Nam, for the benefit of the people. Tribhuvane Manyau Sharanya Karau. And because they are very learned in the scriptures, they are doing it for the benefit of the people. They are actually honored all over the world, all over the 3 worlds. Tribhuvane Manyau. Manyau. Sharanya Karo. Sharanya Karo means for such personalities, we should take shelter. We should take shelter of the teachings of such kind of exalted personalities. And then Radha Krishna Padaravind, because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha Krishna. So Radha Krishna Padaravind, Padaravind, lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. Bhajana. Bhajana means bhajan of the lotus feet of Radha Krishna. In what mood? In the mood of the gopis. Anandena Mattalikau. Anandena Mattalikau. So they are absorbed in the mood of gopis. Mood of the topmost devotees of the Lord, in the mood of the gopis. They are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. So all of these Goswamis actually have a role to play in the spiritual world. They are known as Manjaris. For example, we studied Radha and Krishna. Radha and Krishna are the divinity explained in 2 forms. One is a masculine form, one is a female form. And these are assisted by the gopis, which are also the topmost devotees of Krishna, Lord Krishna. And these gopis are assisted by Manjaris. And so these Goswamis actually are the Manjaris in the spiritual world. And Roop Goswami is known as by Roop Manjari in the spiritual world. So like these Goswamis, we also, the living entities, also have a role and a form in the spiritual world. We have our unique role and unique form in the spiritual world. Right now, that role and that identity is covered with this material body. Which will be covered if we follow the process of devotional service as explained by Roop Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, and the other Goswamis. Okay. So these were Goswamis were very highly learned scholars in Sanskrit, Persian, and Arabic. They very scrutinizingly studied the Vedic scripture to establish the Sankirtan movement, ISKCON is a part of this Sankirtan movement. It is not the only movement, it is not the only organization establishing Sankirtan movement, but it has grown to a very large extent that all other organization establishing Sankirtan movement have become quite small in front of ISKCON. So uh, present day Krishna conscious movement, as I mentioned to you, ISKCON, largely ISKCON, is based on the authority of the books by Srila Rupa Goswamis. So these are the books, like we studied Nectar of Instruction, we are going to study Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, and like that there are many books that have been written by Srila Rupa Goswami and the other 6 Goswamis. And this whole movement, whole ISKCON movement, Sankirtan movement, the basis on which, the platform on which the whole movement is standing is these books by the Goswamis. And the chief Goswami is Rupa Goswami. And because this is based on their books, we are also sometimes known as Rup Anugas. Rup Anugas. Rup Anuga means followers. So follower of whom? Follower of Srila Rupa Goswami. So it's such an important idea. So Prabhupada, in the opening of the book Nectar of Devotion, has very vividly introduced Srila Rupa Goswami to the reader. Now we move to the next theme of the book Nectar of Devotion. So the next theme is, what is the difference between ordinary rasa and the bhakti rasa? As I explained to you briefly in the beginning of my talk, bhakti rasa. So we are not talking about rasa. So Srila Prabhupada start explaining this topic first of all by making a statement that what is bhakti? Bhakti means devotional service. So bhakti is not a lone emotion which is there within ourselves. So it has two words, devotion and service. Devotion is something which is internal, which is something to do with the emotional aspect, and service is something which is external. External means how do we express that emotion, that love for the Supreme Lord, which is known as bhakti, as service, as our activity. So that is what is meant by bhakti. Then after explaining that, Prabhupada explains, what do you mean by service? And every service has some attractive feature and some pleasure which drives the servitor. So person performing service gets some kind of a taste doing that service, some kind of an emotion doing that service. And that is actually known as that driving force that drives the servitor because of that pleasure, and he continues to do that service. The driving force is known as rasa. So rasa is something which is known as a kind of a mellow, a kind of a emotion, or a kind of a relationship, a kind of a taste. And each one of us have different kind of service, and doing that service we are enjoying different type of taste. So all of us are engaged in some service or the other, whether we know or whether we don't know, whether we accept, whether we don't accept. And some of the examples are, somebody might be engaged as a service like a family man, as a householder. So he's serving his parents, he's serving his wife, children, brother, sister, and so on. When the scope of this service expands a little bit, he might be serving to the nation. So not only his family, but he's now serving the whole nation. Similarly, not only nation, but he's now also expanding its service, the scope of his service, and he's serving the humanity. And there he's known as a philanthropist. But in all of these activities, in all of these service, the person is having or deriving some pleasure, some attraction he's deriving. And this attraction is known as rasa. But Srila Prabhupada make this statement that all these services, as a family man, as a nationalist, as a philanthropist, they all fall under the category of mundane rasa or ordinary rasa. It is, this rasa is different from the Bhakti Rasa. Bhakti Rasa is different from the taste that we derive from serving the family, serving the nation, serving the society, serving humanity, etc., etc., etc. Now, this is then further he elaborates on what is the nature of ordinary rasa, and then he explains what is the nature of bhakti rasa. So first of all, let us focus on what is the nature of ordinary rasa. So the nature of ordinary rasa is that it is temporary. The taste of ordinary rasa does not last for long. It attracts us. When it attracts us, we engage into some activity, and after some time that attraction goes, that fades away, and that diminishes. And in order to explain that with the help of an example, Prabhupada gives an analogy of a businessman. So businessman would work for a whole week. He would enjoy, he would collect salary, money, etc., etc. Or maybe some people might work for a few months, 6 months, 7 months, for a whole year. But at one point of time, this person will say that now I don't want to enjoy this. I want a break. Hmm? And then he will go to a resort. He will take a retreat. He will enjoy with his family, do some other entertaining work. And then after enjoying that retreat for a week, for 2 weeks, etc., he will get bored with that retreat and then again want to come back to the business world. And again, this will continue. Again, he will go for a retreat. Again, will come for the business world. So this is something changing from enjoyment to renunciation, from enjoyment to renunciation. That is bhoga and tyaga. Bhoga and tyaga. We enjoy, we do bhoga, we then tyaga, we renounce. Like that is the nature of ordinary rasa, mundane rasa, the activities we do in our daily life. And the nature of this sense gratification does not endure for long. And there is a word called chapalasuk. Chapalasuk means flickering happiness. So that is the nature of ordinary rasa. Huh? Now, besides the taste of the activity, besides the taste of the ordinary rasa, the activity itself also does not last for long. So, for example, uh, we purchase a laptop. We purchase a new laptop, and when we purchase a new laptop, we really want to enjoy working on that laptop. But after some time, the enjoyment fades away. But not only enjoyment fades away, but the laptop also fades away. Laptop fades away means laptop will become corrupt, laptop will become damaged, it will be broken, it will be sold, it will be lost, whatever. It will not last forever. So neither the enjoyment lasts forever, nor the activity lasts forever, nor the object lasts forever. So that is the nature of ordinary rasa. But on the contrary, what is bhakti rasa? Bhakti rasa is something that that taste, that emotion, that relationship we taste, we enjoy in the service of the Lord. It is never finished. huh? Therefore, it is known as Amrita. Therefore, it is known as Amrita. It is never finished. It doesn't diminishes like the ordinary rasa diminishes. Bhakti rasa does not diminishes. That is why, if you now recall, the title of the book is Bhakti Ras Amrita Sindhu. So Bhakti Ras, and what is the nature of Bhakti Ras? It is Amrit. It is Amrit. Amrit means it doesn't diminishes. It actually grows, and it grows to such an extent that it becomes a Sindhu. Sindhu means ocean. Yeah. So Bhakti Rasa is on the contrary, opposite to ordinary rasa, that it never finishes. And also, another quality of Bhakti Rasa is it saves us from the greatest danger. Where it is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse number 40. Neha bhikramunasho asti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpam asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. That when we engage in spiritual activities, when we engaged in devotional activities, they continue to grow within our heart, and they grow even if we don't finish those activities in our lifetime, there is no danger, because at least a human form is guaranteed, a human birth is guaranteed. But if we don't follow spiritual activities, devotional activities, we don't know. If we continue to follow ordinary rasa, ordinary life, we may in the next life may actually degrade to a animalistic way of life. That is possible. So bhakti rasa guarantees at least a human form of life. Now here Srila Prabhupada is giving a hint of what is the subject matter of this book, and he writes, therefore, all bona fide activities in Krishna consciousness are Amrita or permanent. This is the subject matter of the nectar of devotion. So he is giving you the hint in these two paragraphs. What is the subject matter of nectar of devotion? This book which we are going to study. Then he further goes on to elaborate on this theme. What is the subject matter of this book? And there he now explains a little important point about bhakti rasa and bhakti yoga. He says, he doesn't say this sentence, but that is the gist of these two sentences. You see these two bullet points. Bhakti rasa is actually different from bhakti yoga. So as I mentioned, when we do bhakti yoga means the process by we engage in bhakti, the activities that we actually uh, engage ourselves to do bhakti. So when we engage in bhakti yoga, we get a taste, and that taste is known as bhakti rasa. So there is a difference between bhakti ras and bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is the activities of bhakti, and the taste that we derive from doing those activity is bhakti rasa, and this is mentioned in these two lines. The eternal engagement in bhakti rasa can be understood by a serious student upon studying nectar of devotion. So when you study nectar of devotion, you will understand what is bhakti ras. Then the process of devotional service, which is bhakti yoga, as it is recommended in the nectar of devotion, will gradually elevate one from material condition of life to the spiritual status. So we will also understand what are the activities of the bhakti, what are the devotional services as recommended in the nectar of devotion. So this is the another subject matter of nectar of devotion. So bhakti ras and activities of bhakti yoga. Now how does it work? When we first of all engage ourselves in the process of bhakti, the bhakti ras purifies us. Slowly we get that purification. We are not fully pure, we are partially pure, we are partially purified. Then we get little bit stability in experiencing bhakti rasa. Maybe not for complete duration, but for short duration, for some moment, we get this bhakti rasa, the taste of bhakti rasa. But if we continue to do these activities for a continuously long period, sustainably, with right guidance, right mood, properly, then this bhakti rasa becomes eternal mood, our eternal nature. Then we are eternally situated in bhakti rasa. So that is how it works. And you got a good idea of what is the difference between bhakti ras and bhakti yoga. So more subject matter of nectar of devotion. Now Prabhupada explains the subject matter of nectar of devotion by in a from a different perspective. Yeah? He first of all explains that the basic principle uh, of a human being, or I would say a living entity, uh, is that it has a general propensity to love someone. Each one of us who are spirit soul uh, have this basic propensity to love someone. It is so basic that a living entity can actually live without food, but living entity cannot love without loving someone. So living entity has to love someone in order to get some rasa, some reason for living in this world. And when this loving propensity, or when the living entity gets or start to get this idea that no one loves him or no one he loves somebody, that is the reason where when people actually commit suicide. That is the reason when people think themselves so worthless, that their life is not worth continuing, and that is the reason when they commit suicide. So this is what the basic principle Srila Prabhupada is talking in the preface. And he mentions that even this loving propensity is present even in animals. Now I've shown here one picture where you can see a human being hugging a lion, or a lion actually hugging a human being. Lion by nature are carnivorous, so if they see human being, they would only get water in their mouth. So now a good food has come. But here you can see that propensity to love is there even in the lion, because there is a spirit soul also present in the lion. So the lion also wants to love. Now Prabhupada is saying that this is one of the missing points, that where to repose our loving propensity. We want to love someone, but whom to love? Which is that object? If we love, then we get the greatest satisfaction. Right now, our loving propensity is only limited to our family, our parents, our family, maybe little more to our society, maybe further to our community, maybe further to our nation or to our humanity. But every time we want to love our parents, or further expanding it to family, to society, etc., etc., our loving propensity is never satisfied, not completely satisfied. uh, uh, but if we put our loving propensity in loving Krishna, in loving the supreme personality of Godhead, then we are fully satisfied. Now this is a very important point, and not so easily understandable point. So let me elaborate a little bit to explain this point. Now, when I say if I love my family, what does it mean? It means that I don't love so much the other families. And then if I say if I love my society, or if I love my nation, that means I don't love other nations. For example, if I say I love India, then I don't love Pakistan, or I don't love Sri Lanka the way I love India, isn't it? Or even further, if I say if I love humanity, but humanity is not the whole existence, whole creation. I may love humanity, but I may be killing an animal and eating its flesh. That is not loving the whole of creation. But Prabhupada is writing here that if we put our loving propensity in Krishna, we are fully satisfied. And how does it happen? Because when we learn to love Krishna, we understand who Krishna is, and how Krishna actually is connected with everything and anything that we see in this material world, that we see around us. And if we love Krishna, and if we see all these things in this world in connection with Krishna, then automatically we love everyone and everybody. Like Prahlad Maharaj. So Hiranyakashipu did not have this vision that Lord, everything is connected with the Lord. But Prahlad Maharaj, as a pure devotee of the Lord, had this vision that everything belongs to the Lord. So when Hiranyakashipu asked, "Is your God in this pillar?" Then Prahlad Maharaj said, "Yes, he is in this pillar," because he could see the world, even the pillar, connected with the Lord. So when Hiranyakashipu attacked the pillar with his fist, the Lord appeared. Yeah, Lord appeared to fulfill the words of the pure devotee. That's why Lord appeared. But we are not at that position right now. We are not so pure that if we claim that Lord is there, uh, our claim is only at a theoretical level. It is not at a conviction level. And that is why if we say that the Lord is there in the pillar, probably the Lord will not appear. But for his pure devotee, Lord appeared. And nectar of devotion actually teaches what? Nectar of devotion teaches how to love Krishna. That art, that technique, hmm, how to love Krishna is being taught in nectar of devotion. Okay, we are coming now to the final slides of the presentation today. Srila Prabhupada also makes several statements that are very, very important, and I would like to discuss very briefly those statements. He says that the method mentioned in nectar of devotion is very simple but need to be understood with a cool head. And nectar of devotion teaches how to perform that simple method of loving Krishna. He further mentions, Prabhupada further mentions, if we learn how to love Krishna, then it is very easy to immediately and simultaneously love every living being. So what is the quality? If we love Krishna, then immediately, automatic, at once, and simultaneously means everyone in this world, every country, every living being, every object in this world, simultaneously, if we learn how to love Krishna, simultaneously we will learn how to love every living being. And he gives an analogy. These analogies are actually coming from Bhagavatam. So the analogy is like when we put water on the root of the tree, then automatically every part of the tree gets nourished immediately. It is not that leaves get nourished first or the fruit get nourished first, and simultaneously, immediately the water reach every part and simultaneously at once to all the parts. Another analogy, supplying food to one's stomach. So when we are hungry, if we simply supply food to the stomach, then all the bodily parts are nourished, are energized. Similarly, if we simply love Krishna, then immediately and automatically and simultaneously, we learn to love every living being of this world, of this universe. And he mentions loving Krishna is one switch that will immediately brighten everything. Yeah. So the nectar of devotion will teach us how to turn on that switch. So that is the subject matter of nectar of devotion. And I think this is the final slide. It says here, despite great material advancement, we are still dissatisfied. So as I was mentioning to you, we are still not very happy. We are still dissatisfied. Why we are dissatisfied? Root cause is that our loving propensity has not been fulfilled. So material advancement means we have gadgets in this age which people maybe 300 years ago or 500 years ago, even kings would not have that luxury of having those gadgets. For example, air conditioner. We have air conditioner which can provide cooling to our rooms immediately. And in the past, even kings would have to go to hill stations actually to experience that feeling of air conditioners. But despite having those material advancement today, we are still dissatisfied. Why? Because our loving propensity has not been fulfilled. So the nectar of devotion will give us that practical hints and how to fully satisfy ourselves, and that is how to love Krishna. Learning how to love Krishna will give us that complete satisfaction in our lives. And then finally, Prabhupada in the paragraph number 12 mentions, in the end of the paragraph he mentions, missing Krishna means missing oneself also. Missing oneself means Atma Tattva. Atma Tattva means we know that we are spirit souls. We are not the bodies. But we cannot understand ourselves as spirit souls because it is covered with the body. It is covered with the modes of material nature, the gunas. So, but if we understand Krishna, then we will automatically understand that we are a spirit soul. We don't need separate study. So the devotees does not study Atma Tattva separately. Devotees simply try to learn how to love Krishna, and it is automatically revealed to them in the course of their practice that they are not this body, they are spirit soul. And Prabhupada explained this with the help of an analogy. Seeing oneself means seeing the sunrise also. So if there is a sunrise, it is automatically given that we will be able to see ourselves. We don't need a separate light. We don't need a separate mechanism. So Krishna is like that sun. So if we awaken the sun of Krishna within our heart, we will know our identity automatically. With that subject matter, with that line, Srila Prabhupada has ended the preface of this book, Nectar of Devotion. So here we conclude our class for today. All glories to the Nectar of Devotion. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Any questions, any takeaways, any comments? I will be very interested to hear from the devotees. Please let me know. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Yes. Any
Really
question?
wonderful introduction to a wonderful subject. It almost come like a bag, and we are really very happy about everything and very excited to proceed further. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. So you are really geared up to learn to love Krishna, right?
Yes, yes, sure, sure.
Wonderful.
Did a good job of creating the curiosity.
Yes, I also felt like that. How to love Krishna? How to love Krishna? We thought that we knew how to love Krishna, but now let us see. There's a whole book, 551 chapters on the subject matter. Yes,
Good
Prabhuji. Very,
ticklers in there.
yeah, very nice remark.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Okay.
Very nice.
Any other? Okay. Any other? Any other comment? Jai Mala Mataji, any comment from you?
Prabhuji, how many verses we will be covering in chapters 1 to 19? You are telling how many verses? I mean, approximately, it's only out of curiosity.
Yeah,
Thank
actually, I have to count these verses. What I think I read this book called Vaishnava Saints. So in this book, Vaishnava Saints, this is written primarily for children, but
Chaitanya
there's a
Mahaprabhu, no?
there's a lot of information given in this book. And in this book, on page number 6, it mentions Rupa wrote huge volumes of literature containing over 1 lakh verses. The Nectar of Devotion today remains one of the most famous works. So 1 lakh verses. So I think there might be significant number of verses at least in this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So Rup Goswami has written a lot of verses. I am expecting at least several hundred verses must be there in this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. I have not counted them and not possible to know exactly from the verse number because every chapter they have changed the number. So I have to really count them to know how many verses are there.
Totally 2,129 verses, Prabhu. That's what
Okay.
I read.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
2000 verses. So
Yeah,
that is quite a lot.
2,129.
Quite a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is why Prabhupada has actually given this summary study. Now you can understand.
Very good.
So writing books on 2000 verses might be a voluminous task. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Any other comment or any other remark? Okay, no comments. That means the class.
Actually, Prabhu, I
Yeah.
read that Nectar of Devotion, the
Mhm.
book. When you split it into the points like this, paragraph, the understanding becomes more clear. Something
Okay.
very great of you, something very nice. See, when you read as a book, this point by point, you are split it, paragraph 6, 7, 8, 9, like that, that gives a very good understanding and
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
the things are taking, from one point to another point, the stepping stone and all that, It is
Correct.
nicely explained to you, Prabhu. It's something really good. When
Okay.
when we read as a book, even you don't get that much. Of course, we understand, but your method of putting the slides and this thing, something is really very educative, Prabhu. This,
Yeah.
this is one of the things I wanted to communicate in this. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that feedback. That really helps me, encourages me, and confirms my conviction that the style and the approach that we are taking to the bhakti literature is actually making some impact, and it is creating some good awareness among the devotees. So thank you very much for that feedback, Jivan Dada Prabhu. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
Hare Krishna.
just to mention that next week I will be traveling on business. So certainly will not be able to take a class on the coming Sunday because I will be traveling and maybe very tired of that business travel. And the following Sunday, actually I will come back on Saturday, but because of a long journey, I might not be in a situation to take a class on that Sunday. So please expect that I might shift the another next class also to maybe on Monday. But in case I am not able to prepare for the class, or I'm still feeling tired because of the trip, we may have to take a break for 2 coming Sundays in worst possible scenario. But I will take all the possible effort to make sure that instead of missing 2 Sundays, we miss only 1 Sunday. And the second Sunday, we do have a class, although the class may be for a short duration. We may not cover a lot of subject matter, but whatever we are able to cover, we will try to cover that. So with that, I will try to conclude the session for today. Thank you very much.
How about on Wednesday? Wednesday we'll have
Hare
a class.
Krishna,
Wednesday,
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
This Wednesday we will have the class, but the following Wednesday we will not have.
Following
This Wednesday we will have. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Rakesh ji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you.